Teachers in Seattle have launched their first strike in 3 decades to open up the school year after negotiations broke down between the district officials and teachers union. Last week, members of the Seattle Education Association voted unanimously to walk the picket lines if a deal was not reached. Over the weekend, some issues were resolved, including guaranteeing recess time for elementary school students and offering pay raises for substitute teachers. But the union and school district are still far apart on key issues like length of the school day and compensation, with the district offering 8.2% in raises and the union demanding 18%. On Tuesday, the Seattle School Board authorized the superintendent to pursue legal action to end the strike early. Meanwhile, last week, in related news, in an unprecedented step, the state Supreme Court ruled the state's charter schools unconstitutional because they used public funding but were not held accountable by the elected school board. Well, now joining us to discuss all of this are 2 guests from Seattle. Jesse Hagopian is a Seattle public school teacher. He's an editor of Rethinking Schools magazine, a founding member of Social Equality Educators. He's an editor of the book More Than a Score, and he blogs at I'mAnEducator.com. We're also joined by Wayne Au. He's an editor of the social justice teaching magazine, Rethinking Schools, associate professor of the School of Educational Studies at the University of Washington, Bothell. He's also a plaintiff in that case against charter schools ruled on last week. Thanks both for joining us.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
So Jesse, let's start with you. You just got back to us from the picket lines at Garfield High, where you teach. I wanted to get your response to the superintendent who's preparing legal action and the editorial board of the Seattle Times. They called the strike illegal, and they're saying the strike is the last thing you should be doing right now. The state's education funding model is in crisis, and they're saying you're asking for too much, and you risk having a negative effect on broader efforts for education reform in your state. What's your response?
Well, I think it's absolutely shameful that Superintendent Nyland would go to a bully tactic and turn to the courts to try to intimidate educators who are the heart and soul of the public education system here in Seattle. And the callous disrespect that he's shown towards teachers and educational support staff here in Seattle is really remarkable. I mean, the fact that his bargaining team didn't respond to a single one of what I think is a quite visionary set of bargaining demands until the very end of the summer shows that he was never really serious about entering a bargaining process and coming up with a set of educational policies that could help us achieve a better school system. And to wait till the last few days of summer to respond, and then he rejected every single one of our proposals, from expanding recess, putting caps on counselors' caseloads, to having race and equity teams in every building, and reducing standardized testing, all things that are very popular with parents and students and our communities. He flat out rejected all of these in the last days of summer, and then scampers off to the courts to try to look for an injunction and bully teachers back into the classrooms.
Now I want to ask you, Jesse, will the union still be on strike if the pay demands are met, but these other social justice demands are not?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll go back to the classroom when I'm respected. I'll go back to the classroom when my students are respected. And I think that that is the resolve that our bargaining team and the Seattle Education Association has. And when we took a unanimous vote of thousands of educators, you can be sure that this union is united around a set of social justice demands to fight for the schools our students deserve.
And can you describe the mood at the picket lines this morning at Garfield, which has been a site of battles over teaching and other issues over the years?
It was absolutely electric on the picket line today. Families bringing their kids, spreading out blankets to play with Legos and have the kids chant. We had the teachers at Garfield marching for hours, chanting And the sense of pride that Garfield educators have in this strike, I think is really remarkable, because 2 years ago, the teachers there voted unanimously to refuse to administer the MAP test. And that MAP test boycott spread to several other schools, but it really spread into the union's bargaining team and helped strengthen the Seattle Education Association and show teachers all over the power of collective action. And I think that lesson was learned during the MAP test boycott and is now being applied in this citywide strike for our children.
Now, Wayne, I wanted to bring you in the conversation. What's your response to the comments you've heard from Jesse on the teacher strike and their demands that the Seattle public school teachers are making right now?
Oh, I stand with Jesse and I stand with the Seattle Public School teachers. My son is 5.5 years old. He's starting kindergarten this fall. We brought him out to the picket lines. At least my partner brought him out to the picket lines this morning to show our solidarity with the teachers there. And really, what I think, excuse me, really what I think is critical here is that the Seattle Education Association is bargaining for quality education. It's not simply sort of a bread and butter type of teachers' pay sort of bargaining and strike. It's really about bringing play back to school. It's really about limiting the negative effects of high-stakes standardized testing. It's really about taking on issues around race equity and race justice in public education. And these are issues that bring in the community and the parents and really show sort of the power of what a forward-thinking, more community sort of activist type of union can have in terms of improving education. So it's ironic to me when folks like the editorial board of the Seattle Times say that a strike like this is going to slow down efforts to improve education, when really the heart of the strike is about improving public education for all kids.
Now, is this a typical demand for teachers' unions to be making, talking about social justice and equity in schools?
I would say it's not typical nationwide, but it's becoming more typical because we're seeing these kinds of movements come through. And I think really the Chicago Teachers Union has been an inspiration for a lot of folks organizing, a lot of unions organizing around the country. And so we're seeing these kinds of moves happening more and more often, because it's not only it doesn't only make for an effective campaign, but it also just shows that unions can and should and do side with the students and the teachers and the communities that they work with on a daily basis. And so we're seeing it happen more. We're seeing similar pushes happening, for instance, in Portland, in Los Angeles, in Milwaukee as well. And so the leadership of the unions in some of these places they're really taking a step forward to pushing social justice issues and connecting them directly to bargaining agreements.
Okay, I want to thank you both for joining us. We're going to break for a moment and come right back and discuss the landmark state Supreme Court ruling last week, finding Washington State's charter schools unconstitutional. Join us in a moment.